Thomas the Tank Engine is known by many for several reasons, one of those likely being his numerous accidents. Sometimes, a heritage railway will host special events where their engine is dressed as the character, and while doing so can have their own incident. One example occurred at the Nene Valley Railway in December 1987, when Thomas was drafted in as a replacement for a failed engine, only to be derailed by a set of points at Orton Mere Station. No one was hurt, but 2 trains had to be cancelled, with about 400 passengers being left stranded until buses could take them back to Wansford. Around 20 volunteers battled for hours with jacks to get Thomas back on the rails, and by the following day normal service resumed. In May 2002, the Vermont and Elkhorn Valley Railroad in Nebraska hosted a Day Out with Thomas event. As the 11 a.m. train was rolling out of the depot, passengers felt a small jolt. They looked back, and were alarmed to see their favorite tank engine had become unhitched and left behind in the dust. With the help of a lift brought in by the National Guard, volunteers were able to get Thomas up and running for the afternoon trains. Engineer Al Schaeffler told the Sioux City Journal, "Thomas got cranky." Thomas would find himself in disgrace again on the Swanage Railway in October 2005. The engine, Coventry No. 1, on loan from the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre, was at Norton Station when it slipped on wet rails and passed a signal at danger. The catch points did their job, with all of Thomas's wheels being sent off the rails. The rest of the day's trains had to be topped and tailed, and it was nighttime before Thomas was re-railed and a diesel shunter came to take him away. He was back in service the following day. The last incident I like to note, while not a derailment, shows that beyond railways, Thomas can still cause much confusion and severe delays. In October 2008, Thomas was returning by road to the Midhants Railway after being hired out for an event. He arrived in Alresford, Hampshire, but as the low loader turned the final corner, its hydraulics failed, just a few hundred yards from the station. The tank engine was left in the street for hours, to the amusement of locals, with police laughing as they sorted out the traffic mess. Eventually, engineers fixed the problem, and Thomas could finish the rest of his journey. Colin Chambers, managing director of the Midhants, told the Daily Mail, "The engines are still chuckling about it, I'm afraid."
Before we go into detail about Thomas today, what if I told you Thomas didn't always look like this? In fact, Thomas used to be a completely different engine. This 060 American steam engine has many names. In short, they're called the 060Ts, but more commonly, they are called dockside switchers or porters. In fact, there's a character in the Thomas television show who's based on these engines, and they actually named him Porter. These little engines were scattered all throughout the US, but we will be talking about this little porter, the Brooklyn Eastern District Terminal, locomotive numbered 15. This engine was built in 1917 for the H.K. Porter Company, making this engine over 100 years old. The engine was built to move freight cars at the dockside, as well as deliver coal to the nearby railway tugboats. But as important as these engines were, many of them were unfortunately scrapped in 1963. There are a few surviving members of the BEDT Rail Marine Terminal, those being numbers 12, 13, 14, who is actually located not far from where I live, 15, and 16. Number 15 is the engine we will be focusing on. After they were put out of service, 15 was bought by the South Appalachians Railway in 1965, where it unfortunately didn't do much. Then, the Lake Erie and Western Railroad bought number 15 in 1975, where it was put on static display, not being used and sitting on a siding. The future of this little train was beginning to look very grim, but then, after another purchase, Little 15 arrived on the Strasburg Railway on May 9th, 1998. And this is where everything changed. Strasburg Railroad is one of the oldest operating railroads in the US, most notable for its, as consistent as possible, use of steam power. It is a heritage railroad owning 4.5 miles of track. As of today, Strasburg has 3 operating steam locomotives, which I have had the privilege of seeing all of. Number 90, number 475, and number 89. Quick little bit of trivia, the 475 steam engine was actually seen in the movie Thomas and the Magic Railroad, where it was displayed to be the Rainbow Sun. That little connection to Thomas and the Magic Railroad was vital for the future of engine number 15. When 15 first arrived, Strasburg's intention was to fix it up and make it one of their operating engines for their excursions. After a test run, however, it appeared to be problematic. Look at the size of this engine. The workers soon found its water tanks were much too small to do the round trip without having to constantly fill up with water at East Strasburg Station. So now Strasburg had this engine they had no idea what to do with. That was until Britt Allcroft asked for permission to film on their railroad for the Magic Railroad movie. In exchange for this permission, Strasburg offered an idea to Britt, who was thrilled. The idea was to build a full-size, steam-operating replica of Thomas the Tank Engine. The deal was made, and Strasburg got to work breathing new life into this old and thrown-away steam engine. At first, there was some controversy. Railroad historians and rail buffs found the idea to be concerning. After all, Strasburg was essentially about to take the only operating Brooklyn Eastern District 060 and completely erase its history so it could look like Thomas. Dismantling the engine meant that its history would be gone. But engineers and operators at the time defended these actions, as they felt it was a small price to pay to ensure the love of railroading well into the future. That's the beauty of Thomas, and why so many adults even like the little engine. Thomas has the power to make children instantly gravitate towards him and railroads. The success of Thomas keeps railroads from ever truly being seen as out of date by children. And if children like trains from a young age, well, they're gonna like trains when they're older. Thomas serves as the gateway for children to get interested in railroading, and this keeps railways running and financially stable. Using the boiler, cylinders, wheels, and firebox of number 15, the saddle tanks were replaced with side tanks, and in April of 1999, Thomas took his first run. To be successful in some areas and not so successful in others. For example, it has been said that the heat from the smoke box caused the eyeballs in Thomas's face to melt. Luckily, that was never seen by the public eye and was quickly fixed. With new side tanks and after a successful run, Strasburg's very first day out with Thomas was officially opened in June 1999. Footage of this opening day can be found on the 10 Years of Thomas the Tank Engine VHS tape as the intermissions between episodes of the show. And the rest, as they say, is history. So why do I care so much about the Strasburg Railroad Thomas? Well, because in the US, he is the only full-sized, steam-operated Thomas engine. To me, that just makes him all the more real. Not to mention in 2014, Thomas went to the works and came out looking a lot cleaner and more like himself. And he's a lot less shy now. He talks. The dummy units may look more like the show, but there are so many cosmetic beauties that make the Strasburg Thomas what it is. Now, people always say they don't like the addition of the cow catcher and the outside cylinders. Well, the cow catcher wasn't added for fun. It was added because it's the law. In the US, if there are locomotives that operate on lines close by farm life or different weather conditions, cow catchers are required by law so that if stray rocks or stray animals get onto the line, they simply get pushed out of the way instead of being hurt. Considering Strasburg is literally in farm country with farms nearby, and considering the Thomas events with lots of children nearby, the cow catcher needs to be there. If it wasn't, legally Thomas wouldn't be allowed to run. Or worse, he could go to jail.
The law is the law, and we can't change it. Everyone will laugh, sir, said Thomas. They'll say I look like a tram.
The outside cylinders and smaller wheels may look odd to some, but they are kept there for two reasons. One, a rebuild to hide the cylinders would be nearly impossible, and two, these are integral parts of the original number 15 Thomas was built upon. In a way, Thomas continues the legacy of number 15 by operating with its parts. 15 is still around today, only he's number 1 now. Without the Strasbourg Thomas, Day Out with Thomas may not have existed in the US. Children would have never met Thomas face to face, and railroads would have never been able to make money and keep themselves in business just by inviting Thomas over. Thomas has an important place in literature and media, but how beautiful is it that the best place to see just how much Thomas impacts the world and its railroads is not in a book or not on a TV screen, but at a real railroad. This little engine has helped keep railroads in business just by smiling. So I guess it's true that little engines really can do big things.